Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution
Each week we interview top artists.
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
There it is.
GMUNK, welcome to Origin Stories.
RD, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
We made it, man. We made it happen.
I'm honored to be here. You're a pillar, and it's great to share the space with you.
Likewise, man. Now, this has been months and months in the making, and yeah, it feels good. It feels good. And of course, we begin here. GMUNK, what is your origin story?
Oh, it's so good. I grew up in Minneapolis. Canadian parents came down from Winnipeg, and my biggest muse growing up was my older brother. I had an older brother, 5 years older. And we just played tons of Dungeons and Dragons and, role-playing games. We're writing stories, creating characters. All our characters in Dungeons and Dragons, of course, became gods. And we went like the whole deity route. And it was just a very creative childhood with my older brother. He also introduced me to music. He was a drummer. I was a keyboard player. So percussion was a huge part of my childhood, just listening to rhythms and percussion and him teaching me to pay attention to drum fills and tempo. And I think that laid the groundwork for my editing mind. Just music is a huge part of everything that I do for mood, right? And so that was my creative childhood in Minneapolis. When I was 18, I was really into sculpture. I was really into ceramics in the art department in high school. Went to just a normal public high school in Minneapolis. And then I was the youngest in the family. So when I graduated from high school, the whole family moved to California. So my parents moved to Marin in the Bay Area. My brother moved to San Francisco, and I went to school in Humboldt State, which is about 5 hours north of San Francisco in the Redwood Forest in Arcata, California. And I at first, didn't think that I could make money in art, so I was an oceanography major. Okay. I was really interested. I started scuba diving at a very young age. About like 8 years old in Jamaica, and then went on to teach scuba diving, was like a dive master in my teenage years. And, I just was really into, the world of underwater. It would just felt like being on the moon. I would go on night dives and I just loved it. And so an oceanography class was science. And so all of my, we're collecting a lot of data, right? You're collecting a lot of data. And I would just spend so much time on my charts, on my data readouts and my charts, and I would hand draw everything and I would turn it into the instructors, and they would just be like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is this elaborate graph that you're making? You should totally take a graphic design class. Like, what's your deal? Like nobody cares about the design of a graph as much as you do. I've never seen anything like this in my life. So then started graphic design, and then just said, what, fuck it. I'm just going to take a leap and I'm going to make my own major. In Humboldt State, you can do anything. It's state college. You can do whatever you want. So I made my own major. I did filmmaking. I did the film department. I did the graphic design and fine art department, and I did the video journalism department. So I combined all three mediums, which I still do today. I still am a very transmedium kind of artist. And so I was making Super 8 and 16 millimeter films, telling stories. I was in the graphic design department, the fine art department, still did a lot of sculpture and painting and drawing and obviously tons of graphic design, and then was doing video journalism. So learned the editing suites, the analog video mixing. This is quite a while ago. This isn't, this is a long time ago. And so I kind of I was looking in school, I was looking for like the software to combine all the mediums. Like what was the software to combine all the mediums? And it was immediately Flash and After Effects were the two things I learned first. Before I even learned Photoshop, I learned After Effects and Flash. I started in motion first using footage, and then I learned Photoshop. And it was just those three pieces of software that I was just mixing and matching. And Flash to me was a way to get triggered events going. So like how to get audio cues to movie clips and rollovers to be triggered by audio cues and create transitions. And I was very inspired by, Chris Cunningham's work, Spike Jonze's work, Aphex Twin, that kind of percussion. And then like Designers Republic and The Attic. You know, that was like my earliest influences was all of that, and in like a mashup using Flash and After Effects and Photoshop. And then from there, you know, just, you know, right from school, I was recruited by a company called Virtual, and they shipped me off to London. Yep.
Let's pause there for a sec, because before you get recruited and start getting swept up, I want to know, let's get into GMUNK's mind. When you're looking for those tools to bring all of these, you know, eclectic interests together, what are you telling yourself then? Do you have that vision? Are you saying, I don't know yet how it's going to come together, and I'm cool with that, and I'm just going to figure it out?
You know, the beautiful thing about being young is you don't overthink things. Mm-hmm. You know, the older you get, the more you really, really break everything down. What does it mean? What is it saying? You know, and when you're younger, you just kind of go with impulse. Mm-hmm. And my storytelling at that young age was so free and beautiful and so strange. It was really strange. And in a way, it was like an out of mind experience where I was just going with impulse, and I was going with feeling that was just raw to the bone of just, and not really any subject matter. It was more just odd. It was more just odd. You know, I was really interested in characters, like odd characters and scenarios, and then just applying graphic design and motion design to these scenarios. I was very youthful in my themes. It was very pure. And then as I got older, I started getting more into, you know, proper storytelling and themes. But I guess what was going through my mind was just excitement. You know, it was just like, because you're learning new methods. Like the first time I learned Photoshop, I was freaking out. I was freaking out that you could take an image and just fuck with it, you know, do things, manipulate it so profoundly. And, you know, all of my friends were making fake IDs, and, you know, we're all forging documents. And here I am just like doing wild manipulations. And then in After Effects, making them move and putting music and percussion and tempo. And then, you know, and then the texture and kind of soul of film coming into that, and scanning that and digitizing that and bringing that into these interactive experiences. You know, I think it's just, you know, it's all I've ever done. You know, it's all I've ever done since college. This is all I've ever done is just dream. I'm a professional dreamer. You know, I get curious, I get inspired and curious about something, and I dream about it, and I express it in a myriad of ways, you know, depending on what's available or what's the theme of the month. You know, one of my favorite artists, his name is Michael Cina, and he's one of the world's greatest graphic designers, you know, to start there, typographer, graphic designer, but he's also an amazing fine artist. And he said something that's always moved me. You know, I saw him speak over a decade ago at a conference. And he said that, you know, my work follows seasons. Every season I try to completely reinvent myself. And once I saw that, I was like, you know, that's it for me, is the way that I stay inspired, you know, for the longevity of a long ass career, is to reinvent myself constantly. And the way that you do that is through collaboration. You can't, you know, sometimes you can, you know, explore things on your own, but the best way to do it is to collaborate with people you love to manifest, you know, in art and creativity in new ways. You know, so I work in robotics, I work in live action, I work in installations, I work in, you know, motion design, you know, live action direction, commercial direction, fucking, you know, it's like one week I'm, you know, filming a car on a Russian arm. The next week I'm nerding out on some fluid simulations. The next week I'm building a laser installation. The next week I'm designing some robot moves for a film. You know, it's like, it's all over the place. And that's how I stay inspired.
I love that. All right, take us back. You get recruited.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, it just goes, I just worked, you know, in web, you know, it was basically my real design education was my first gig out of school. Mm-hmm. It was, you know, I don't want to say any years because I don't want to like date any of this stuff, but like, it was like during the big web boom when Flash was coming in and just everyone was seeing the web in a new way, mm-hmm. you know, like outfits like High Res, Design Graphic, Deform One, you know, 3.0, all these blogs, K10K, News Today, like all just is an explosion. And I always say that this digital art renaissance that we're going through now is a parallel to that. This is way more expansive. This is way bigger. But it reminds me a lot of the Flash days, because there's all these artists with all these monikers coming out and doing, wild shit that everyone's seeing for the first time in a new format. Mm-hmm. Right. So all the cat, basically there was this company, ZeniMax Media, that was a gaming company, but they had all this, .com boom money. And so they recruited all the best Flash artists in the world to all work together in a studio called Virtual. And I was like one of the only Americans that they grabbed, from Humboldt County. This fucking stoner tripper kid from the Redwood Forest comes in with all these like European, amazing designers with like proper design education from Sweden, from Denmark, from Germany, from England, and just like plop me right in the middle. I was roommates with a Dane and a Swede, and it's like, here you go. You're 24 years old. Have fun. It's like, and that was like one of the most profound chapters in my career. There's been a lot of really profound chapters in my career, and all of them have one through line, and that's influence. Mm-hmm. Like influence, like pollination in like the same room with a bunch of talented people showing me new shit. Mm-hmm. That's like, those are all the breakthroughs. There was one in 2014 at Bot and Dolly, when I was coming from like motion design and VFX pipelines. I just finished working on Tron and Oblivion, 2 feature films. Mm-hmm. Designed all the holograms in Tron Legacy, which is, kind of one of my favorite gigs, I guess. It was like AR before AR, it was like augmented reality before augmented reality, designing all these like geometric light forms in a feature film under Joseph Kosinski, one of my favorite directors. We could talk about that. That was incredible learnings, but coming from that and then doing Oblivion with him, I was just like, I can't do techie shit anymore. I can't do this. And I moved from Venice Beach up to San Francisco. My dad was ill. I wanted to be close to family. And I went to go work at a robotics studio called Bot and Dolly. And they were doing motion controlled cinematography and had like this incredible, it was just like one of the fucking coolest aggregations of talent ever. It was like the perfect moment in time where all these people were together and just innovating. And they figured out how to projection map on moving objects. So how to track canvases and projection map them. So the canvases were held by robots. Mm-hmm. Two robot arms, and then the camera's on a third robot. And so it's basically what they're doing now in virtual production, when you pair the camera to real-time content and you can see into it. It's basically, they're doing that with projection mapping and motion control back, 8 years ago. And so we made a film called Box, and basically they just gave me the keys. I show up to the studio and they're like, here you go. This is your project. Here's the keys. Make it dope. And I was like, so now I'm, instead of thinking about shit on the screen, I'm thinking about content in space and choreography and like, what's the movement of the canvases? How does that complement the art? How does that complement the content? How do you get the room involved? Putting lights on the back of canvases. So when we flip invert the art, it emits light from the back of the canvases. It's like all these little cues, and then I just went deep dive into cinematography and practical. Everything physical, everything real. And I did only practical work for like 6 years, just only everything in camera, no post-production, no CG. I was like, no, not doing it. I was bored. I was just like, I just did so much of that. I'm just only practical now. And, and then I get bored again. And then I say, I miss fluid sims. I want to get back into some fluid sims.
Is that your cue? I was going to ask you that. Is that your cue, is boredom? Because you have these collaborative opportunities, these wild opportunities to explore these different things. You get excited and passionate. Is it just that the excitement starts to wane a bit and it's time to move on? Yeah,
it's a spark. My whole life is about chasing sparks. Mm-hmm. It's like chasing that like, that you feel it. I just remember the feeling back in school, back at Humboldt State, when I was learning Photoshop for the first time. I remember the feeling. I remember my heart exploded. It was just like, and the mind starts churning. You start thinking of ideas really fast. The possibilities. You start processing like a million things at once, and that spark and that creative adrenaline is what I've chased for decades. That's why I love being on set, because I love the energy. You know, it's basically your plate. It's your space. You go in there, you have 40, 50 people all looking to the director. And it's like, this is my vibe. Let's get nerdy. Let's be like kid. I loved when I was a kid, I was making stop motion films. I was making all sorts of stuff. And I just love like when you get collaborators and people are just making costumes and dumb little things just because they want to be creative, just because they want to make shit. And that feeling I want to transcend onto set at all times when we're just all hustling. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was this bounce light in their eyes? So we get the people, they're holding the mirror, they're like lights bouncing off the mirror, they're like trying to get it right. It's like just a bunch of dorks, there's a bunch of dorks on set. And that's I'm always trying to like get that kind of vibe of just, we're all going back to our youth, making stuff together. We're playing music, we're rushing against the clock, so like that adrenaline of inspiring and creating and moving, and like fighting against the clock. You're always fighting against the clock. And then, and having to like, think about that, think about your crew, think about your talent, and then be so focused on the monitor that like, you don't miss anything, so focused on what you're capturing, all against the clock. Next shot's up. Next, it's fucking better than skydiving.
Better than skydiving. I like that.
Skydiving is short.
Have you skydived before?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I try not to be too athletic because I don't want to get hurt.
Well, that
all
case,
my friends are like tennis players and bikers. They get into accidents, and I'm just like, I'll just swim.
Right.
Yeah, but I think I'm always chasing that spark, and I think the diversity in the work gives me that spark. Just weird executions, and it's all through collaboration. I have all of my dearest friends, guys at my wedding, guys at my bachelor party. They're all just collaborators and just beautiful people that I've known for 10, 15 years, homies, cinematographers, production designers, practical artists, motion designers, glitch artists, just like these guys, I love them as friends. And then we just get on, we get in a room, we get in a dark room together, play the tunes, crack jokes for 8 hours, and make really awesome stuff together. Nothing better than that.
Nothing better
than that.
Windows 10. So when you, we'll get to NFTs, of course, but early on in GMUNK's entry into the NFT space, it was swirling around there. It was like, did you know that GMUNK did the Windows thing? That was it was a cliche. I heard it in 4 different places. Did you know that GMUNK did the Windows thing? I was like, that's interesting. Let me learn more about GMUNK. Talk about Windows 10.
Okay, so that is definitely going to be my most visible work ever. That'll be impossible to make anything that's seen more than that. The brief was to make something timeless. The brief was make something timeless. We're going to use this for 4 or 5 years. How does this not age? And my solution was, it's not going to age if it's real. Let's create a volume, let's create a space and photograph something practical. I was going through my practical phase when Windows 10 came. And so the tricky part about it was that the logo itself, if you think about this, the logo itself is kind of like a faked perspective. It kind of has a vanishing point, but then the middle cross is flat to camera. So it's actually incorrect. The middle cross is flat to camera, but the window itself has a vanishing point, right? So I wanted to use that vanishing point and actually make it a window. So we had to do some really weird camera mapping and like lens compression to kind of recreate that window practically. So when you see the actual practical window, it's stretched out way more than the final product. And then we compressed it with the lens to get it to look exactly like the Windows logo. So that was the first thing. And I kind of try to detail that on my website, but it didn't know if it translated. It was a fucking really gnarly process to make the perspective work practically. That was step 1. And then step 2 is there's a laser projector behind it, and it's mapping the window. And we put little acrylic hits on the edge of all 4 of the openings. So we get those glints. And then we just did a bunch of different laser patterns to fill the space, tons of atmosphere, just different laser patterns, and then combined all the laser patterns together to that image. That's like 3 or 4 passes put together, but all practical photos. And we did so many different things. Microsoft is very much like, make it blue, all blue. We did pink. We did we did so many cool gradients of color, greens, cyans, magentas, reds, like total like Windows Miami, like Windows Miami, South Beach Windows. And then we did all this fog rolling through it that we did long exposure streaks through it. So it was a great shoot. I loved it. Thank God I like, it's a little bit too blue. It was much more like kind of green to blue gradients, kind of teal to kind of that primary blue gradients with like cyan all throughout. I was trying to push more of like a gradient through it. But in the end, they were just like all blue, greens to Windows Vista. Can't do it. And I was like, it's client work.
And were all of those other takes essentially scrapped? Did they ever pull them out for special occasions or anything along those lines?
They take all the, some of the B-roll and just like take one layer of it or super simple stuff. Yeah. All the wild shit was tossed.
Gone. Client work.
Client work. Yeah. It's just, but I mean, I love that project just because it was so, it was very freestyle. We actually did 2 different executions. We did one with glass, where we mapped the glass, and then it was just kind of floating on clear. And then we did one with the light volume, and that was the one that was used. But it was, I love that project. Obviously, it's super visible, and I'll never escape it. So thank God I like it.
Yeah, pretty epic thing to have been a part of.
I mean, yeah, it's like once you like, if you do a Google search for like a computer monitor and all the computer monitors have that image on it, it's like, oh shit. But I mean, I love working with lasers because it gives you all of the volumetric qualities that light, really bright light, but then it's also very graphic. So it brings me back to my graphic design days where, graphic forms, you can make very beautiful lines and they have this a mission to them. I think when I went on that practical kick, I was trying to find like, what is the next obsession? And I found light as my medium because it can be very graphic. It can be very emotional because it's warm and it has all these different qualities. And then you start thinking about rhythmic light, how does light move the absence of light? The light, the on off state of light is everything. I mean, that is the like, you start in a black room and you turn on a light, automatically your eye goes there. That light starts moving in beautiful stroboscopic ways. It's like, okay, yeah, we got a mood here. We got a vibe. And then you syncopate that with music and you start getting, shit starts happening, so I've worked with all sorts of different light, LED light, lasers, projection. And I'm always thinking about not only the end product of the light, the visual aspect of the light, but also how does the light inform space? How does it light up the space? How does it give you hints and cues? And then obviously you pair that with photography and cinematography. It's light is everything. So it's all about light, man.
This might be a strange question, but did oceanography influence light at all in your world? Because there's some artworks of yours that randomly come into my head here where you can almost see the refraction of light. I don't know, with a sense of that underwater atmosphere.
I think I'm just obsessed with the qualities of water. Refraction is, who doesn't love refraction? Like refraction is the best. And I just love, hopefully you ask me about psychedelics at some point. Because that kind of goes into refracted perspectives. Refraction in perspective is a really big one for me in terms of like, I look at refraction, the way what water does to an image or water does to reality, as a parallel to what your mind and subconscious perceive as reality. And that to me, like I've always loved water as a substrate, as a medium. And so, the piece that was behind you is, a form in water is for the same reason. I wanted to refract a form, an elemental giant in water. That's a wall of water just coming down. That's like a waterfall in front of him. And I just use that as a refraction screen. And then the interplay between the subject and the water at 1,000 frames a second is everything.
That's Oceanus from your first Nifty Gateway release.
That's right.
And it should be back on that frame. I don't know. It got cut for some Raph Grassetti back there.
Yeah, some Raph Grassetti, you know.
It'll loop back in. It'll loop back in.
Fucking Raph Grassetti. Shit. Come on, Raph. Where's your refraction? Next piece, water. Raph is amazing. I love. Let me just give Raph some props real quick. I love that dude has a full-time job. I mean, how do you deal with that? I just love how talented of a modeler he is, you know, and how he's basically created his own genre in the NFT space with his work. It's fucking, he's one of the best for a reason, you know. It's just beautiful work, beautiful sensibility. He's just mad respect for Raph. Nice guy too.
Hell yeah. Shout out Raph Grassetti.
Shout out Raph Grassetti. Big fan.
You heard it here. Let's pull it back. I have a serious question for you.
Yeah.
GMUNK, talk to me about psychedelics.
Okay. So, you know, in school, you know, psilocybin was a huge part of my education, and LSD. You know, back then it was very, you know, it was very not quite as mainstream as it is now. And thank God it's becoming more mainstream, because I really do feel like, you know, there's like, look, dude, I've been, you know, to Burning Man 9 years. I used to go to Winter Music Conference and Ultra for 6 years before that. I love partying and music and just like getting, you know, partying. I come from a party background, and mostly because I like the reset. I like the feeling of just losing yourself in music and just being in, you know, just being in the sonic environment where you just kind of shake out all the stress. It's almost like a massage in a way. Shake out all the stress, you shake out all the bullshit in your life, shake out all the thoughts, and just focus on moving your body to a rhythm. And I've done that for years. At the desert, watch sunrises, fucking hotels, you know, penthouses to the desert, more penthouses, more desert, the beach, you know, it's always the same. It's very tribal to me in a way, right? And that's party drugs. That's like party shit. Psychedelics to me is way deeper, because it turns you inward to really self-reflect. And what I'm obsessed with is the mysteries of the subconscious. You know, like there's a whole nother you that you don't really tap into except when you dream and when you die. Right? And so like, how do I get in touch with that me? Psychedelics. Yep. And not just like psilocybin and LSD, but like hard psychedelics, you know, like you got to you go, you know, dimethyltryptamines and 5-MeOs and ayahuascas, like, you know, the real deep dives, the San Pedros, the peyotes, you know, to a lesser extent. And I just love the self-reflection. I love the destruction of ego, you know, and it's more about like, not only is there so much visual inspiration into it, like it's just like, you will see colors and forms that you never thought were even possible. I can't recreate that shit. Like I don't even know how to recreate 99% of that shit. But what I can tap into is my self-talk during the moment, because there's a lot of it. And that to me, depending on kind of what state you're in, is like a revelation on who you really are, you know? And a lot of people are like, it's scary, there's too many demons and stuff, but at some point you should confront your demons. I'm not going out and saying like everybody should, you know, do this. That no. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm talking about just what works for me is it's a curiosity in the unknown, and it's very personal. So I just, you know, I go through seasons, you know, sometimes, you know, there's really, really, really heavy, and sometimes I don't take it for years. You know, I don't want to like become dependent on it. I don't need to like, you know, be taking it all the time. It's more just like when I feel the time is right, I need to go put some time in to just really just like beat it down, just tear it all down and build it all back up. And every time that I do that, I'm a new person with a completely new outlook on myself, creativity, love, feeling, mood, you know, and it's more just for personal growth than anything else.
I know you said it's impossible to recreate the exact visuals that you see, but what's the closest you came?
I did a DMT series. It's so far off. I need to learn character animation, and I need to learn like there'll be a time when there's going to be a time, and it's not yet, but there's going to be a time when I have to, I pair with like some of the best character animators in the world to just self-fund this vision that I have. And it's mostly like these tube creatures. It's like you start off with like a Kubert grid that's just like hypercolor, just all the spectrum of color and perfect gradients, and everything's constantly morphing and changing. And just like, it's kind of like the reason I'm really drawn to AI art, kind of those GAN algorithms, what Memo and Ravi and Mario Klingemann are doing, is it's so fucking psychedelic in the way that it moves, in the way that it's constantly changing and forming perfectly and transitioning from one state to the other. It's almost like it's transitioning from one idea to the other. And that's what your brain does on psychedelics. Mm-hmm. It's constantly changing and moving and forming. And these formations are like these like cubic structures. And then out of the cubic structure come these faces, these kind of like tube faces and mouths and eyes. And they all kind of just like manifest for a moment. And there's this ringing, there's like this buzzing, this wow, and then they lock in, everything kind of slowly grows. And then I see lights. I see lights in like the corner of my eyes. And it's like they're giving off light, and then it changes. Then it locks in again. And my mind is just racing as I go through this. I'm just thinking about myself, my place in the world, my divine purpose, meaning, why am I here? It's the best. I just, there's nothing better. No fear, man, because the reason I say that is because it's all just you. Like people have trauma, and I get that, and I've seen, in some ceremonial settings, I've seen people fucking break the fuck down. Like, addiction, trauma, just melting, just crying. And it's like fucking vivid memories of just big fire in the middle. We're in a circle surrounded by redwoods, and just people just losing their fucking minds, just rebuilding, just tearing it down, rebuilding it, moving on, turning the page. And, once you see that, man, it's just like, that's a humanity. That's why I go to Burning Man every year. It's the same. It's like, I love raw humanity. I love emotion. And seeing people, it informs my creative being. It informs my spiritual being. So I think that we all have our demons. We all have our trauma. We all have our demons, and it's not a bad idea sometimes to confront that and be honest with yourself. That's why I love therapy. Same thing. I went through a divorce. We're getting real here, RD. I'm just like throwing down. I went through a divorce in 2010, and I went into therapy for like 2-3 years after that. Mm-hmm. And it was the best. It was self-critique. It's just like all the things, go back to childhood, build that up. These are all the things, and just be honest with yourself about how you can be a better human being. And I love that shit. I love therapy, and psychedelics to me are a different form of therapy. It's like a visual, spiritual, very, very non-conventional type of therapy.
I think it's well said. Multiple types of therapy, right? A bit different for everyone, different use cases for everyone. But yeah, I mean, I am also a fan of getting in there from time to time, deconstructing it, putting it back together again, trying to use the phrase "turn the page," right? I like that as well.
Yeah. I want to talk about. Can we talk about like mental health in the NFT space?
Oh yeah, you can talk about whatever you want, man.
Yeah, I really. I'm coming off as so hippy dippy, which y'all will meet me in New York next week. I'm not as hippy dippy as you think. I dress nice. I wear cool stuff. I'm cool. I'm not like this fucking hippy dippy guy. I am, but I'm not. But I want to
bring the robe, dude. Bring the robe.
Should I bring the robe? Wear that out one night? Oh man. Do love this. It's very comfortable. It's like this Turkish towels, fucking amazing robe. So I started doing body work recently, where I was just wanted to do deep tissue massage, found this amazing body worker in San Francisco. And he was explaining to me that, you sit down with him for an hour and you go through stuff. It's kind of like a therapy session. He was explaining to me that unfelt emotions are stored in your tissues and they crystallize, and they kind of just like block the flow of energy through your body. Your body is a whole It's all about flow. It's all about movement, right? Get things moving through the body. And feelings and unfelt, like undealt with emotions are stored in your tissue as crystals that kind of impede the flow. And so I was talking to him about, things that I was feeling. And I was like, this year has been really interesting. In the NFT space, we're now all digital artists. This is our career. We're making a living doing this. And there's a lot of like feeling of just, you're obviously comparing yourself to a lot of people because some people are crushing, making crazy sales, and where's your place in all of this? And it's very easy to just start comparing yourself to other sales, to other people, just all this stuff. And it was kind of like, I was honestly having a little bit of the trouble, like finding the right method to cope with that. Just to like, how do I kind of block this? How do I stop this? Because that's just hindering me. That's a hindrance. Like, I don't need that. it's just taking away focus. It's all these cycles that I just don't need. It's all cycles. Feelings are all cycles. They come in, you process them, they go, and cycles are time, and they're time spent thinking. Like thought and focus, it's all cycles, right? And so he explained to me that, you need to deal with that, and you need to basically cope with the fact that by comparing yourself, and feelings of competition are really not useful. It's really not useful. You can only process things you can control. And how other people are doing in anything in life is something you can't control. You can't control it. I have no control over anything except the work that I do. It's the only thing I can control. And maybe to some extent, how you promote the work, right? Those are the two things I can control. And since I started kind of dealing with removing these kind of crystals and just kind of dealing with that, I've been fucking laser focused on only the things I can control. Second point of this is, and thank you, X said this so perfectly. He's a wonderful, wonderful, one of the pillars of the space, just a wonderful human being. Just really, really strongly saying that a victory for one is a victory for all. And that's so important. Like, the success of one is a success for all of us, because we're all in the movement together, right? And so in processing these two things in parallel, I've come a long way in terms of just like being at peace in the space, finding my place, and just focusing on the things I can control, which is doing fucking dope work and being happy.
Oh yeah, you're so right though. I mean, you have dollar numbers, you have status symbols, you have followerships and likes and retweets and membership counts in Discord, all this stuff that encapsulates the NFT space right now. And I think you're spot on. I think it's relevant. I think it's timely. And it sounds like you got to, I think, the most productive take on it all, which is, as much as you can, just focus on doing good work. The rest sometimes has a way of taking care of itself. Maybe not to the historic, stratospheric, crazy anomaly record-setting levels, but in a pretty positive sense. Yeah.
And there's so many, and I don't mean like feeling competitive in like a negative way, because I love everybody in the space. Like, there's so many good people and so many talented people and just lovely human beings coming through. And I'm a big fan of everybody. Like, there's literally, I haven't met any assholes in this whole year. I haven't met one person I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like, there's literally nobody. Got mad love for all the folks. And it was so fun to come up. I jumped out of Discord. My first Discord ever was in December, January, with like 8 people, 10 people, right? And it was Fred, it was Victor, it was Slime, it was Thank You X, it was Alessio, it was PlayStation, Marius Spurlik, Philip Hudas, Exulo, Euphoria.
It's a lot of power names right there.
This is like, but think about it though. Think about it in January. Mm-hmm. You're like, what the fuck's going on? It's all this like Nifty gateway drops. Just wild shit going down, right? Mm-hmm. And we're all just never met each other. I mean, obviously Fred and Victor and Euphoria, all the Canucks, they're all little homies, but like we're all over the world, just like vibing on this little Discord, just the original, just us. And I felt so honored to be included in that, because I come from a completely different world. I'd never really treated Instagram like an art platform. For me, Instagram was always about photography. I never really, published any of my motion design work or my directorial work. I was on Instagram's photography. It was a very old fashioned way of looking at it, to be honest, kind of outdated. I was just so happy to be accepted in that crew, like that's the original. I just love those guys. And then through that, I was exposed to just kind of, watching Twitter come in and being kind of the medium, and obviously the Clubhouse explosion when we were all doing Clubhouses in February, March, April. So it's just been such a fun year, man. Like it totally made the year, although we were all kind of, eagerly awaiting to start socializing because of COVID, right? The NFT explosion has just completely defined the year. It's just crazy to think that it's been not even a year yet, right? My first drop was on Super Rare in late December. It's been 10 months. It's fucked up, so it's been an eventful year, RD.
And going back to mental health, I think the perception of time, it does impact that sometimes. Another factor that we can stack on top of some of the other stuff we talked about. The perception of time is strange. I've never experienced anything like that in my life, compounded by social circumstances, the rise of a technology, the artists and the art leading it forward, all of this stuff just intermeshing in the same space, in the same 10 months, feeling like, I don't know, close to 10 years, 5 years, at least a couple years,
Yeah.
No one can back me off of that. It has been at least several years since late 2020. You can't talk me off that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's and now all of these artists have resource. Mm-hmm. That's the big difference between, the flash boom and this is like everyone's, got resource now. So, I'm going to self-fund shoots next year. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Before it was like Audi fucking throwing down for me to play with this and that. Now it's like, I'm just going to do it myself and do it my way. I'm going to shoot. I got plans, dude. Next year is going to be so fucking dope. I got so much. And it's like, because, and the reason it's going to be so fucking dope is because I'm not going to be extended too thin, right? I'm going to focus on less things and put more into it, and I have that luxury now. Next year is going to be amazing. New media, you're going to see some wild shit next year, RD. I
believe it, man.
This is just the beginning. We're getting locked in. Robots and lasers and film work, like shooting on film, 35 millimeter film stock, and like really playing with halation and installations and physical. It's obviously going to go to Iceland and Greenland again.
Let's go. I want to go to Iceland,
dude. I mean, as a landscape photographer, like nothing beats Iceland. Iceland's incredible. And Greenland too, Greenland's becoming a lot more accessible now. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get my, I really admire Ruben and Kath for their tolerance of cold. Like those shots that Ruben gets of sunset to sunrise in like the Bolivian salt flats. Do you know how fucking cold that is right there?
I believe it.
Like I shot in Mauna Kea, which was 14,000 feet elevation. So it's very high. Mm-hmm. But in the summer, overnight doing, long exposure astrophotography. And I've never been more cold in my life. Like I've never, and those two, the what they deal with, Kath as well. And the Canadian Rockies getting like fucking long exposure nights. It's like crazy cold temperatures. It's like landscape photography a lot is just how tolerant of you are of camping and cold and being uncomfortable as fuck.
Some favorite stories that I remember from an Origin Stories with Ravi Vora, and he was talking about his world travels and getting some of those key shots and the hours and the terrain and the different circumstances surrounding them. Pretty fascinating stuff.
Hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. People are like, pretty picture. No. It's hard. I mean, I love landscape photography because I do it in a certain way that interests me. I don't necessarily love, that I don't love subjecting myself to that. I'm just not built for that. It's just not my thing. But like, I love seeing the unseen. I love kind of photographing an invisible light, and I don't need to fucking camp out overnight to get a long exposure of the Milky Way. Like I have no interest in that, because I don't want to fucking be cold. I want to be comfortable. I want to be chilling, but I do a lot of full spectrum photography, and landscapes are obviously the best for that. Yep. GMUNK is a huge project of mine that I've been doing for years. because it's very psychedelic to me. It's very psychedelic you're basically seeing the unseen in much of the way you go inward to tap into your subconscious. You're seeing an invisible light where you come on a landscape, see it with your naked eye, you look it through your camera and it's like a completely different thing. It's a completely different world. And then you take that negative and you process it. And it's just like, I have no idea what's emerging from that until I start. I have no idea what's underneath that until I start processing it. There's no way for me to know. It's an invisible light source. So that process is fucking fun for me.
So InfraMonk, right? Something you've done for years, but now let's segue into that NFT space, right? And you've now done many things in the NFT space. You've been to some auction houses, you've been on Nifty Gateway, been on Super Rare. Take us wherever you want. Doesn't have to be chronological necessarily, but take us somewhere.
I've been kind of categorizing my work into genre types, and you have PsyMonk, which is like my blatantly psychedelic work, and you have InfraMonk, which is the full spectrum photography. SkyMonk is aerial photography. FilmMonk is film work, either 35 millimeter still film, or now it's going to start being motion film, cinema film stock, and so I kind of like start there, kind of dividing it out. And then there's the experiential stuff, which we haven't tapped into yet, which, because for obvious reasons, but that's coming next year. There's going to be some wild shit. And it might involve robots. It might involve a narrative, it might involve a ticketed event, there's some wild shit coming. And, my obsession with robotics is, not to get on too much of a tangent, but I just love the emotion you can put into machines. I love giving them a soul and starting to move them in interesting ways. We did that a lot in Telestron, where we just explored how to make these robots characters and have emotion in the way that they moved, and the way they treated light. We have a film coming out next year for the off titles that was our next follow-up for that, which is robotics and laser work and this like soul extraction ceremony. So we put narrative into that for a film, captured on film. And now we want to do a new show that's narrative, to be experienced in person, walking around, giant 14-foot tall robot lasers everywhere, content, I'm very, very excited about that. Getting into virtual production as well next year, LED volumes, Unreal Engine, seeing into it very much like Box. But anyway, NFTs. So that's where I start by just kind of like saying, okay, these are the genres of work I want to explore. PsyMonk is obviously always my favorite, because it's either a curiosity in a phenomena, like the perfect simulation was one of my NFTs. Is just, I've always wanted to make a fire cyclone. Okay. Like I've always been obsessed with tornadoes and cyclones. I come from Minneapolis, been in tornadoes before. And I wanted to make a cyclone of fire, right? And kind of smoke and so I went to an effects stage and we built it with fans and a flamethrower. And we built the fucking thing with this circle of fans, flamethrower goes up, gets caught in the wind, shoot it at 1,000 frames a second, right? I love high-speed cinematography because it takes a moment that you see like this and it draws it out to 20 seconds. Where you just get lost. And that to me, one of my favorite cinematographers of all time is Louis Schwartzberg. He's like a time-lapse master, does like the Fungi Network, does amazing time lapse of things grow. He's a big, old guy, big tripper. He's like California's finest, Louis Schwartzberg. And I just love his work, and then he stretches out time. His manipulation of time is one of my biggest inspirations. And so it's called the perfect simulation because it's fucking perfect, because it's real. Fucking real. You can't code that. There's nothing you can make on a computer that will ever be more perfect than the real thing. And that was the brief for the Windows 10 desktop as well, And so I bounce around, I bounce around, and this year was just kind of like a playground of just ideas, just throwing things out there, learning the medium. And next year is about mastering the medium. This year was just about just like kind of, stream of consciousness, just boop, 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 try this, try that, do this, do that. But next year is planned. Next year is planned out where it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Let's talk about the formats. Let's understand aspect ratios. Let's understand the platform where it will look the best. Like, okay, let's do all these things. And those all come from learnings. Those are missteps that I've had this year. It's like, okay, yeah, I want to do some anamorphic laser work. I'm going to drop that on Foundation because it'll look fucking beautiful, because the way Foundation displays work is, in my opinion, the best. I love the design of the platform. I have a design background. So, like, I look at Foundation and I say, that's a hot platform. The way it's designed, the way it displays artwork is beautiful. I'm going to drop that shit there. It's going to look the best. If I try to do an anamorphic frame on super rare, it's going to get squashed between the two columns. It's going to be about this high on the page. It's going to look like shit. Learning.
I like that. I like extending your artistic vision even to the platforms and how it's going to be displayed. And
100%. Yeah.
We're talking a lot about display tech and display formats and such lately.
Yeah. Super rare is great for vertical, 4x5, 9x16, square. Nifty Gateway is better for kind of auction format, collector base, auction format, auction dynamics, and Foundation's just perfect for making the artwork look perfect. Now that we have, customs, my Sotheby's piece was on Manifold, minted on Manifold, token ID number 1. And so now it's like, okay, you can manipulate that side of things, get into some mechanics, get into some properties, and generative NFTs, the way the NFTs are changing, not necessarily generative in like 1,000 pieces, one of one, that kind of thing, but generative in terms of like what Mad Dog is doing with Replicator, and kind of what 6 and 5 did, with Daniel Arsham did, where things are changing due to a time parameter is really interesting to me. And how can I take live action footage and wrap it into that? Like now that I've seen that, next time I'm on set, I'm going to be thinking about that shit. I'm going to be, I'm going to be shooting in the aspect ratio that I did for Symbiosis Mythologica that's behind you, vertical, crop to a 4x5 or a 9x16, because I think vertical plays really well in the space. So it's just about doing it and learning. If I wish back then I had somebody just sit me down and be like, okay, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. But these are different things. Sometimes you just have to do it and fuck it up a little bit to really understand how everything works. And I think that, it just takes a bit. And I feel like next year is all about really calculated moves, really everything has a reason, everything has a purpose, everything is a moment, rather than just like flippantly throwing something on. Let's throw this up on super rare, see what happens. It's like, no, we're gonna get this a little bit more curated. But I'm having a ball, dude. I love seeing, because I know a lot of people, RD. This is basically all I've done for over 20 years, right? So I know all the fucking, I've been all over the world with fucking, everybody, dude. All the OGs, we've been all over the world, because before all this was the conference circuit. We've all spoken at design conferences all over the world, dude. I've been, last time, everywhere. I filled up like 3 passports speaking. I've spoken at over 100 design conferences, and started in 2001. And, that format is you have an hour or an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, to just break down your approach in a speech format, where the stage is yours. You look at Joshua Davis, one of the greatest speakers I've ever seen. He's a showman. Signal noise, same thing, showman, total showman, just like embraces the format and runs with it. My shit's chill. Like I put my feet up, I take my shoes off, I drink gin, and I'm not the spectacle. The work is the spectacle. I just chill. Like I just literally, they get me a custom couch, they get me a plant. I put my feet up and I go through like 600 slides in like 90 minutes, just like going through, breaking that shit down, telling the story of, when I get bored, changing seasons, bouncing around mediums, and then just like put projects in there to tell the story. It's storytelling through, it's a deep dive into your work. And, I think that my point in all this is that like, it's so beautiful to see all of these people, new and old. My favorite part about this is all the new people I've never met. All the fuck renders, the Victors, the Mad Dogs, the Slime Sunday. I knew him a little bit better. I knew his work, a little bit more than some of the others. But just like seeing all these younger kick-ass artists come in, and like watching their process and learning from them mixed in with like all the OGs, and then bring in the whole new medium for all these folks coming up under that, you know, it's fucking, there's never been a time like this. Wow. Ever. And then crazy amounts of resource being thrown around. Mm-hmm. Crazy amounts of resource where people have, you know, people can turn around and start collecting work. So feel so honored and thankful to be supporting my favorite artists. Mm-hmm. You know, like got an opportunity to do that and build a collection and be an art collector, you know, like that, and take that seriously. It's been an amazing opportunity too. So there's never been a time like this, man. I know everyone says that. I've just been around a long time, and there's never been energy like this before, ever. And it's old, you know, OGs and new artists, and everyone's cross-pollinating, and it's fucking amazing. And the medium's changing. You know, the actual medium is always evolving, and what it means, you know, now everyone's obsessed with the custom smart contracts and kind of what does that unlock? You know, so now it kind of gamifies the space a little bit, and that's fucking cool. That's fucking cool because it's just more creative ways to create art, and that rewards the collector. The collector has unexpected, you know, treasures to discover within the work. Rapid iteration. It's going to be exciting, man. Before we get to your calculated 2022, and before I give you a rapid fire lightning round coming very soon. Yeah. One thing, and it's selfish interest. My obsession with GMUNK was all surrounding your first Nifty gateway drop. And it was of course, the artwork on the wall, right? Oceanus, and it was a collection of 8 artworks. Can you talk about that? Because that was where I really just fell down the GMUNK rabbit hole, and it hasn't stopped since. Thank you. That was you know, I was really obsessed with the human form, and why, you know, the foundation is high-speed cinematography. That's, you know, just taking moments and just stretching them out, and then just, you know, putting some mood on top of it to just like get lost in this interaction between the human form and the elements. And the 4 elements I chose to do was, you know, earth, wind, you know, earth, air, water, and fire. Mm-hmm. Right. So those are the 4 elements. And, you know, the goal of a lot of my work is I always want the execution to kind of be confusing. So I want all of my live action work to look like perfect CG. And I want all my CG to work to look like perfect live action because of the way that I use light. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, whenever I do CG work, I always kind of look to, I use Maya. I love fluid sims, smoke sims, and I always try to keep it a little bit more elemental. Or it's about op art, moire patterns, you know, some sort of like psychedelic take. I'm not the kind of person that's gonna really interested in modeling. I'm not really interested in modeling. I'm not really interested in texturing. You know, I'm more interested in atmospheric elemental expressions in CG. And so for Symbiosis Mythologica, I wanted the execution to kind of feel like CG because I knew I was entering a digital art space, you know, like this is a digital art space. So I wanted it to look like fucking perfect CG where you're just like, oh, maybe, okay, the human form is probably real. And then you're just compositing all this water. And that's literally some of the best compositing you'd ever see. That was kind of my idea there. And I just wanted to represent the human form as these elemental titans. So you kind of play on scale. Mm-hmm. Right. So the human form looks huge compared to the element, and you just create these like colossus forms in a way. And that was kind of, and then just celebrate the 4 elements, you know, and slow it down so that, you know, for instance, some of the earth was just, you know, putting a bunch of dust and particulate on them and just having them wring it out, you know, and so you just see like all these particles coming down. It looks like CG. And they just like throw it off their body, and you just get lost in this plume of earth. You know, it's like that in the water. You know, there's water walls that they interact with. The fire, we had to have a specialized actor for the fire because she was basically like this fireball gal. You see this like fireball swinging it around, and then just like put her in this like smoke plume. So the fire actually lit up the smoke around her, so you could kind of trace the fireball in the smoke. Super fun. You know, it's just play. And the key through it was just to really get lost in the movement and kind of the interaction between the human form and the elements.
Yeah, I saw that collection and look, it was artistic, cohesive, captivating. And yeah, I thought it was very, very, very unique, especially back then when, I mean, Nifty Gateway ruled the world at that point, right? That was, I mean, Super was absolutely doing their thing, but Nifty just had so much of that momentum behind them at the time. And I remember that collection came in and I just thought nothing was like it on that platform and in its immediate, surroundings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to throw down and show people something new with everything, and just it's just a creative interpretation of something that I'm really interested in. In that moment, it was the human form and the elements and kind of how they interact. And, my most recent in Sotheby's was just, I wanted to get lost in an eclipse. I wanted to get stuck inside of an eclipse, eclipses are like the moment. I'm sure you've seen a partial and full eclipse. Yeah, it's like, it's like, you just get, it just time stops and it's so powerful. And I just wanted to recreate that in space where during the eclipse, you're just kind of stuck inside the penumbra, which is the shadow cast from a full or partial eclipse. You're kind of inside of it. And I just wanted to you're kind of stuck in this almost black hole. And I intentionally left you in there, the viewer in there too long, because I wanted them to, once you watch something and you kind of just your brain wants to make sense of it quickly. Okay, I understand this. I understand how it's moving. I get it. I appreciate the detail, right? And when you're kind of become uncomfortable watching something, your brain starts to race a little bit. You start to kind of ask questions. And what I wanted the viewer to do is start asking questions about themselves, because all you're doing is you're staring at a black circle with a shit kind of a volumetric light shadow behind it, and you're just kind of stuck in it. And then I wanted, just for a second too long. And then I just wanted to break out of it, just feel the scale, with just that really, really profound sound. It kind of sounds like a freight, a sea liner freight, just like pushing off the dock or something. And then you kind of just okay, other side, this passage of time, it's almost like a 24-hour cycle. This is just a session, it's like I'm obsessed with eclipses, and I wanted to really put a mood and a moment inside of it, and I wanted the viewer to kind of reflect on themselves in that moment. And it's like, okay, that's what I want to do. Let's build this fucking thing. So we go on set, hang a big old sphere from the ceiling, paint it like semi-gloss black, get a spotlight, fucking get a circle dolly, right? Yeah. Move the camera to the perfect spot. The light's not moving. It's all camera. Boop. Get right there. Tons of atmosphere. Boom. Put a bunch of diopters, put a squeeze diopters to kind of echo. I'm really obsessed with diopters. And diopters are thing kind of filters you put over the lens. Not filter, but they're just glass you put over the lens. And based on a certain region of the glass, it'll magnify the image. Goes back to refraction. Goes back to the ocean, goes back to, and so I like to stack diopters. So it's like, whoop, and then whoop. And then you get really, and the way it interacts with light is my favorite, because you get this extra, it just does wonderful, unexpected things that you can't plan for. You have no idea what it's going to look like until you look at it through a diopter. So there's some laser work that's coming next year with some diopter work that's fucking tight.
Love it.
I'm very humble, I'm very humble, but when I do something that's like, okay, this is actually a pretty fresh take on working with lasers, I'll be like, that's tight.
You're humble, but you know your shit.
No. It's like if you can do something that people haven't seen before, that shit's tight. Like I felt like Telestron was tight, because had people really seen a study of volumetric light and form on a robotic arm before? Box was tight. Had people ever seen like projection mapping on moving objects in like a fucking motion control cinema, choreographed thing? It's fucking, that's where I'm like, and then the cool thing about this RD is that now all these fucking artists are out there crushing, right? All these artists are out there crushing, and they have resource. Before, you would try to collaborate with someone, be like, nah, dude, I got, I need to make money. I need to do client work. I'm bogged down by this and that. Everybody's available now.
Yep.
They don't need to do client work anymore. You know, like the collaboration opportunity is fucking amazing. You know, my big goal next year is there's two folks I want to collaborate. One is Fuck Render.
Yeah.
Because I love him. Fellow vegan. Just a wonderful person. I want to collaborate with Fuck Render. We're talking. We have something in mind. Fuck Monk.
Oh,
Fuck Monk is coming. Hopefully I'm in and I have ideas. I'm throwing ideas at him. He's busy. So I'm hoping to corner him in New York, give him some mezcal and just be like, okay, dude, this is what we're going to do. I know he likes tequila. I'm going to get him on mezcal because like, let's get a little smoky. Let's get a little pure. I feel like mezcal, tequila, mezcal. Let's take it up. So I'm going to introduce him to mezcal. He probably knows. He's probably like, shut the fuck up. I know all about mezcal. Shut up. But Fuck Render, Fuck Monk is a goal, and Memo. Mm-hmm. Memo Akin. Memo. Do you know Memo? Do you know who I'm talking about?
A little bit.
Ooh, dude. So Memo is like OG. So back in the day, there was a company called Marshmallow Laser Feast. There still is. Mm-hmm. And Memo and Barnaby and who's the third guy? I can't remember. Robin. What's his name? Robin. Memo, Barnaby, and Robin were fucking doing amazing work together. Just like light work, installation work, just incredible work. And Memo bounced to get a double PhD in like artificial intelligence, just wildly smart dude. And his like, there's a lot of work out there working with AI, and it's beautiful. I love the shit, but Memo's like the god of that. And I want to collaborate with him on a big old project next year. And so those are the two that I'm like, must collaborate. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, obviously the usuals, you know, me and Joshua Davis need to do something together. But the point is that it's available. People are available now. Mm-hmm. And that's new.
Freedom of choice.
Did that answer your question?
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. We went to a great place, but I want to key in on a phrase you use. You use the phrase wonderful, unexpected things. And let's go there. Lightning round, GMUNK.
Oh boy. Okay. Shit. I was watching the Mad Dog thing and I was like, oh fuck, dude, this is going to be hard. Okay.
There really are no rules. It's just hot takes.
I just want to try to give you one word and I want that word to be right. So I'm going to do my best here.
You're going for the one word take.
Well, isn't that the point?
One, a couple, a sentence, but if you feel it, passion is the name of the game for GMUNK. If you feel it and you need to hit timeout and go down a different road,
I can call timeout.
You can call timeout. Please.
I haven't seen people call timeouts in this.
Let's go. You're breaking the rules. All right, lightning round.
Okay, here we go.
Number one, NFTs.
Resource, opportunity,
Ethereum,
the future,
NFT NYC.
Too much fun.
Sotheby's.
Reunion.
Mm-hmm. Sotheby's.
A pillar. Legendary, historic.
Christie's.
The same. A pillar, legendary, historic, life goal, bucket list. You know, just the two pillars of making it as an artist. You know, it's like the stamp of approval. It's like not approval. It's the stamp of legitimacy.
Light.
Warmth, wonder, feeling.
Color.
The same. Warmth, personality, feeling, mood, texture.
Fuck render.
Cute human. Fucking cute human.
Fuck monk.
Hotness. Fucking radness.
Inframonk.
Inframonk is the unexpected. It's nature's spirit, nature breathing.
Psymonk.
my passion, the gateway. It's translating my innermost being.
Super rare.
The Wild West. Super rares. I love super rare, and there's always wild shit going on super rare.
Nifty Gateway.
When I think of Nifty, I think of Max Bucksbaum because he's been my guy through the whole time. I love Max. I love Tommy. And they're working on it. They're working over there. They're Nifty Gateway super rare are the ones, and hopefully will always be the ones.
GMUNK.
Curious, friendly.
And let's wrap here. 2022.
Best year for creativity ever. Fucking ever. It's just been so rich. It's been too much fun, man.
But that's 2021.
Oh, is that what you asked?
2022.
Oh, is that what you asked? 2022?
No,
all
right.
Shit.
Perfect. Rewind the tape. 2021. Got the answer. Now it's 2022.
Opportunity, vibrancy, just rich family. It's just everything's gonna get better and more refined, and we're all gonna get closer because we started this, and now it's all. This is not a 2-word answer, but it's like it's going mainstream. So now it's all coming up, and we're all chilling right here, just all a little family, and we're just gonna watch the whole fucking world change.
Watch the whole fucking world change. Let's go, GMUNK.
Pretty much, dude.
But hey, man, you have had a long and storied career, done so many things, and I think it's just an honor, man, to see you thrive in the NFT space, and in 1 year's time, have gone so many places, done so many things, and to be so excited and enthused about this moment in history and what you see for 2022. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
It's been a pleasure, dude. I love what you're doing for the community. I love the show. You're a pillar, man. It's an honor to be here with you, and I knew I'd love you the second I saw something. I was like, me and RD are gonna get along.
Let's go, man. And hey, we're definitely going to be an opportunity for milestone origin stories. I think 2022 is going to be the year because, we're pushing episode 50 here. By the way, what 49 is your favorite number or close to?
49 is my favorite number. Yeah. I grew up. Do we have time for this? Do you want me to tell you a little little story?
Come on.
When I was 13, my dad took me to Tokyo, and in that, just as a fun father-son trip. And while we were there, I was not really into sports that much, a little bit. But I remember watching the San Francisco 49ers beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Japanese. I watched the Super Bowl with my dad on the TV, and I immediately fell in love with the San Francisco 49ers, like that team, Joe Montana, Roger Craig, Ronnie Lott, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, all of that group. And so, from 13 all the way till 18, I was a 49ers fan. Loved the 49ers, scarlet, red, and gold. And then we moved to San Francisco, and it was like going to 49ers. It was a different era. It's a different era. It wasn't kind of the same as the Joe Montana era, but it was just remember. So what I did from, 18, learning After Effects, learning all of my digital software, all of my, you have to input parameters for things, opacity, position, like movement, and all of the numbers that I use are 49er player numbers. So 16, 26, 33, 42, 69, because 80, 82 are basically the only numbers that I use in anything. And those go decimal as well. So it's like, okay, 8.0, and 8 is another number, Steve Young. So it's like, it'll be like 8.16, 8.49, 16.26, so it's like, literally those are the only numbers that I've ever used in any sort of software. So if you open a Photoshop file of mine, there's never going to be an opacity of 36. It'll either be 33 or 42.
Amazing. That's
right?
a cool story.
And it's all based on the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers. I give a fuck about football now. I don't give a fuck. I don't have time to care. But it basically, it informed my entire digital parameter life was all players from those 49ers teams from back in the day. So I when I hear 49, it's like, it's like it triggers me in a way.
How perfect was this then?
Fucking perfect. That's why I was like, hey, wait, you're on. I need to be number 49. So I was actually, I was like, I need to be number 49. So it's very fitting. And I was lot 49 in the Sotheby's auction too. So I was like, okay, this is good.
Oh man. All right, GMUNK. It's been a pleasure. Episode 49 forever.
49 forever.
We will talk to you soon, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much.